Good morning. This is Chair French, and I'm convening today's business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission. I am joined today by my colleagues, Commissioner Susan Duffy and Commissioner Dwight Keene. On today's agenda, we have 31 consent agenda items and one noticed item. Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review our consent agenda. Do you have any questions about the items on the consent agenda today? And I'll start with Commissioner Duffy. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions about the consent agenda items? Commissioner Keene, do you have any questions about the consent agenda items?
I do not. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
I can hear you. I think we may not have Commissioner Duffy.
I don't see a video of you, Mr. Chairman. The video's off.
My video is off.
Okay.
Commissioner Duffy, can you hear us?
I cannot hear the chair.
Hmm. Commissioner Keene, could you ask Commissioner Duffy if she can hear you?
Yes. Commissioner Duffy, can you hear me? Commissioner Duffy? Evidently not, Mr. Chairman.
IT, what would you suggest we do? Should we restart the meeting, or shall Commissioner Keene and I proceed?
She probably needs to check her sound settings. I don't know if it would help if she dropped and rejoined.
Let's try that. If we could send that to her in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us through through some technical difficulties.
It's probably amazing it hasn't happened before now, actually.
These things happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll wait for a minute, let her rejoin here. Can you hear us now?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us, Commissioner Duffy?
I cannot hear anybody. Yes.
All right, we'll take a few minutes to let IT work with Commissioner Duffy.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're good.
All right,
right.
can you hear me? Can you hear me, Commissioner Duffy?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Very good. All right. Let's see I think we were on the consent agenda, and Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions about the items on the consent agenda?
I do not, and I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second for the items on the consent agenda? Commissioner Keen?
I I have no questions either, and I would second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda items are approved. And we will now move to our noticed item, and our presenter, this is in docket number 21, SPEE 331 GIE. And this is a proposed interim order on special provisions. And our presenter today is Mr. Phoenix Anschutz. Phoenix?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
On March 10th, 2021, Southern Pioneer submitted an application and request for an expedited order. In addition to seeking extraordinary cost recovery, Southern Pioneer requested the commission issue an expedited order within 10 days of its application, approving special provisions for customers disconnecting service prior to a final commission order in the docket, and allowing one industrial customer to pay its share of extraordinary expenses in its April bill instead of through its allocation of the regulatory asset. Southern Pioneer explained the interim provisions regarding charges upon disconnection are requested because of the inequities that would result were a customer to terminate service prior to a final order in the docket. Normally, the customer's final bill would include their portion of the power cost from the previous month per an energy cost adjustment calculation. But because extraordinary costs from February will not be charged to customers until after a final order is issued, a customer who leaves the system prior to the issuance of a final order would avoid their responsibility for those extraordinary costs. Additionally, Southern Pioneer explains the interim order is requested to allow Southern Pioneer to charge one large customer its full share of extraordinary February costs on the customer's bill instead of collecting the amount through the regulatory asset. On March 15th, Commission staff filed a response to Southern Pioneer's request. Staff stated its support for Southern Pioneer's request, but recommends to the extent Southern Pioneer's request is approved, the Commission order that each customer who disconnects from Southern Pioneer's system prior to a final order be charged on an interim subject to refund basis. Furthermore, on March 16th, the Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board, CURB, filed a response to Southern Pioneer's request. CURB is also supportive of the request, but there were certain modifications they wanted to see Southern Pioneer undertake, including being required to inform the commission about its process and implementation of the charges for customers who disconnect before final order, sufficient effort to educate customers about the potential for additional disconnection fees and charges related to the winter weather event prior to those charges being prior to that customer leaving, amongst a couple others. This order before you would approve the Southern Pioneer's request as reasonable and serving justice to Southern Pioneer and its customers, and approve the special provisions. These special provisions would allow Southern Pioneer to begin collecting extraordinary expenses right away, and as recouping those extraordinary expenses, help ensure Southern Pioneer continually provides efficient and sufficient service. Furthermore, the charges to disconnecting customers would be subject to refund, and the recommendations set forth by CURB would be adopted in their entirety, which would include Southern Pioneer distinguishing between voluntary and involuntary connections, excluding involuntary disconnections from the winter event charges, inform the commission about the processes and implementation of the charges for customers who disconnect prior to a final order. Southern Pioneer would educate its customers about the potential for additional disconnection fees and charges related to the winter weather event, and it would make the 36-month payment option mandatory for customers who disconnect prior to the order, and also allow customers to opt out of the payment plan altogether. Obviously, that was a mouthful. I would recommend approval, and if anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Phoenix, for that comprehensive description. Let me turn now to my fellow commissioners to see if there are any questions for Phoenix. Commissioner Keen, do you have any questions?
I do. I have one question, Phoenix. It's kind of, if you'll pardon the expression, it's sort of a cut to the chase question. As I understand the order, and I want to make sure I understand that correctly, in the event there are conditions subsequent to this order that, for whatever reasons, demonstrate that a recalculation had to be made on the impact of the winter weather event, and there were reductions in the pro rata share of that event amongst all the different classes and all the different customers. Does the order anticipate in such an event that those reductions would be shared somewhat pro rata?
Yeah, yes, that would. So the order before you is just about the special provisions, but in the application as a whole, I believe that's the understanding. If there's federal aid received or something that would reduce those costs, I believe it will be shared amongst the classes based on their, I believe it's energy usage for February. That might be a question better left for technical staff, but I believe any reductions will be apportioned to the rate classes.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
I appreciate the question from Commissioner Keen, the subject to refund provision, which I believe is extremely valid as we are just beginning our investigation into this polar vortex event. And that is top of mind, that if there is a reduction, everyone would benefit. I appreciate the work that staff did on this. Also, I really want to give a shout out to CURB for the value that they have added to the decision-making process for us today. I think they've rounded out the equation by ensuring that customer-related assurances are in place with this order, which I think are very necessary. So I appreciate the work that they have done and we are adopting in this order. And with that, I would move approval.
Second.
Well, a motion and a second to approve the proposed order. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, those in favor of approving the proposed order in 21 SPEE 331 GIE, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. That brings us to the conclusion of today's noticed agenda. Hearing no further business to come before the commission this morning, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. We made it through.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Don't know.
It's all good.